Welcome to Stay Lit. Imagine for a second that you dedicate your entire adult life to correcting the grammar of dead people.
Right.
You completely ignore the pursuit of fame, you shun the spotlight, and you demand this absolute terrifying perfection from all your colleagues. And you do all of this just so you can be remembered as the most rigorous Latin scholar in history.
Which is quite the life goal.
It really is. But then the universe plays this massive joke on you because you end up being remembered globally and forever, not for your academic work, but for writing these short, heart-wrenching poems about how fast life passes you by.
Yeah.
And that is the wild, completely contradictory reality of the British writer A.E. Housman.
It is. It really is the ultimate historical irony. I mean, he published collections like A Shropshire Lad and Last Poems, and these became literal anthems for entire generations.
Yeah.
They have never gone out of print. But in his own mind, his poetry was just a trivial byproduct of his existence.
Which is crazy to think about.
It is. His true calling, the thing he felt actually mattered in the world, was his severely strict academic scholarship.
So I want to frame this for you, the listener, because there is a very specific feeling that Housman captures, and I think we all experience it at some point. Have you ever had that moment where you look back at a slightly younger version of yourself, like maybe even just the you from 12 months ago,
Oh, sure.
and you just physically cringe at your own overconfidence? Like looking at an old social media post or remembering an argument you started where you thought you knew everything.
The absolute worst feeling.
Right. Or alternatively, maybe you've had one of those jarring realizations while you're just, I don't know, waiting in line at the grocery store,
Yeah.
where it suddenly hits you how incredibly fast a year just vanished.
Yeah, that sudden dread.
Yeah, that ticking clock feeling.
Yeah.
So if you have ever felt that collision of like youthful arrogance fading into a startling awareness of your own ticking clock, today's exploration is going to resonate with you on a profound level.
It really will.
We are going to look at the man himself, and then we're going to do a meticulous reading of two of his most enduring poems from 1896. We're looking at When I Was 1 and 20 and Loveliest of Trees, The Cherry Now.
And to really feel the emotional weight of those poems, we kind of have to start by understanding the rigid, disciplined mind of the man who actually wrote them.
Right.
Professionally speaking, Housman was one of Britain's most respected classical scholars.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a man who built a career path through the most prestigious institutions imaginable.
The heavy hitters.
Yeah, Oxford, then University College London, and finally Cambridge University. But his specialty wasn't just, reading old books and discussing themes.
No.
It was a highly technical discipline called textual criticism.
Okay, right. And we really need to clarify how that actually works. Because I think when people hear textual criticism, it sounds like he was just like a really harsh book reviewer.
Right.
But this is way more intense than that. This is more like forensic science, isn't it?
It is entirely forensic. Textual criticism is this painstaking process of examining ancient manuscripts to establish the absolute, most accurate possible version of a classical text.
Wow.
So think about it this way. We do not have the original piece of papyrus that a Roman poet wrote on in, say, the 1st century.
Right. Those are long
Gone. We only have copies of copies of copies, usually made by medieval monks centuries and centuries later.
And those monks were human. I mean, they were probably working by candlelight, freezing cold, maybe a bit sleep-deprived.
Yes, that is spot on. So imagine a monk in the 12th century copying a manuscript. His eye slips,
All right.
and he accidentally skips an entire line because the sentence above it ended with the exact same word.
Oh, man.
Or he squints at a faded letter and mistakes an R for an N.
Which completely changes the word.
Totally. And then, fast forward 800 years, and those tiny mistakes have been copied 100 more times, totally warping the original meaning of the text.
So he's tracking that down.
Yeah. Hausman's job was to trace the lineage of these errors. He would analyze the distinct dialects, he would study the chemical fading of the ink, and he'd use this intense, almost encyclopedic knowledge of Latin grammar and meter to reconstruct the missing pieces.
That is wild.
He was essentially solving centuries-old linguistic puzzles to recover the original author's voice.
I always picture it like restoring a deeply faded, incredibly valuable Renaissance painting.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
It requires this high-stakes forensic investigation. If you are the art restorer and you use the wrong chemical solvent, you might burn a hole right through the canvas.
Yeah.
You might alter the expression on the subject's face forever. And for Housman, a single poorly translated word changes the historical record.
It does.
It changes what an entire ancient civilization is fundamentally telling us. So it requires a level of perfectionism that frankly borders on obsession.
It does border on obsession, yeah.
Yeah. But I have to wonder, and I'm sure you, the listener, are wondering this too, if you spend all day demanding that level of absolute, pristine purity from dead poets, how do you treat the living people sitting next to you in the faculty lounge?
Well,
I mean, I am guessing he wasn't the most relaxed guy at the department mixer?
no, he was not. He was, by all accounts, a profoundly demanding and often terrifying colleague.
Terrifying, really.
Oh, yes. He had zero patience for laziness or sloppy reasoning. None. He would frequently and publicly tear apart other scholars in his publications.
Like in print, just roast them.
In print, if a peer accepted a flawed ancient text simply because, tradition dictated it, Housman would dismantle their logic with a very cold, biting sarcasm.
Wow.
He believed his discipline required immense intelligence, relentless, careful reasoning, and sharp practical judgment, and he was completely intolerant of anyone who didn't meet that standard.
So we have this uncompromising, severe academic who seemingly lives in a world of dusty manuscripts and intellectual combat. But the historical record actually reveals this fascinating dual life.
It does.
Because he was very reserved, very serious in his daily demeanor, yet he clearly craved sensory experiences. His hobbies were surprisingly tactile.
Yeah, they really were.
He loved walking for miles across the countryside.
Yeah.
He was fascinated by church architecture. He studied botany and had a really deep passion for identifying plants.
Right.
He also deeply enjoyed fine food and wine, and he traveled extensively through France, Italy, and Istanbul.
Quite the itinerary.
Yeah. This does not sound like a man who only lived in libraries. This is a man who paid very close attention to the physical, breathing world around him.
And that tension, that exact tension between his rigid professional life and his vivid sensory life is key to understanding him.
Right.
But to understand why he compartmentalized his emotions so severely, we have to look at a devastating biographical catalyst. And that is the death of his mother when he was just 12 years old.
Oh, wow. Losing a parent at that age, especially in 1871, right on the cusp of adolescence.
Yeah.
And during the height of the Victorian era, which, wasn't exactly known for healthy emotional processing.
No, stiff upper lip and all that.
Right. That must have been catastrophic.
Catastrophic is the right word. When you look at the trajectory of his life, you can trace a direct line from that early, sudden tragedy to the profound emotional depth that suddenly bursts out later in his poetry.
Yeah.
Losing a mother at 12 often forces a child to build a fortress of discipline. The universe has just proven to you that it is chaotic, cruel, and completely out of your control. So what do?
You control the things you can.
Yes. You build a rigid academic career. You become the absolute master of a dead language because, well, dead things cannot leave you.
Wow. Dead things cannot leave you. That is heavy.
It is. But that immense reservoir of sorrow, that awareness of abandonment and loss, it has to go somewhere. It cannot just be permanently suppressed.
Right. It leaks out.
And for Housman, it found its release valve in his verse.
It makes so much sense. You cannot control the universe, but you can control the meter of a poem.
Yes.
You can place every syllable perfectly. And he maintained that discipline right up to the bitter end.
He really did.
Even in his final years, battling severe heart disease that would eventually claim his life in 1936, he continued teaching and lecturing. He never surrendered that structure.
Never.
And today, his ashes are buried in Ludford, a location he actually immortalized in his own poetry.
It creates the perfect breeding ground for his specific style.
Hmm.
You have flawless logic and intense emotion locked in a room together.
Right.
And that collision produces the recurring motifs we see throughout his entire body of work, which are a relentless focus on the passage of time, human mortality, and the absolute certainty of death.
But the interesting thing to me is that he doesn't just write abstractly about death.
No.
He grounds it in the physical world. He uses nature, but not in the romantic Wordsworth kind of way where a flower is just a symbol of joy and beauty.
No, not at all.
Housman uses nature as a clock.
That is a crucial distinction. For Housman, nature is a stark, sometimes brutal reminder of life's brevity. The changing of the seasons isn't just a beautiful aesthetic shift, it is intrinsically linked to aging.
Right.
Spring is not simply a time of renewal. It is a marker that another year of your finite life has burned away forever.
Yeah, that's dark.
Winter is the approaching grave. The landscape is beautiful, yes, but it is always ticking.
He also focuses a lot on young soldiers. And again, this is 1896, so this is before the mass mechanized slaughter of World War I. But he is writing these deeply sympathetic poems about young men going off to die. Why was he so fixated on them?
Well, he captures the ultimate tragedy of youth cut down in its prime.
Okay.
The soldier represents the most extreme version of his obsession with mortality and the theft of time.
Right, because they are literally giving their time away.
Exactly. I mean, yes, that's spot on. These are young men in the physical peak of their lives, voluntarily stepping into a situation where their timeline might be violently cut short. He expresses profound sympathy for their sacrifice, but also for the tragic absurdity of it. It ties directly back to that loss of control he experienced at 12.
Okay, I have to step in here and challenge this worldview on behalf of the listener because I honestly struggle with this.
Okay, go for it.
If you are constantly hyperfixated on the fact that you are going to die and your poetry dwells on aging, doomed soldiers and a ticking clock, how is that not just debilitatingly depressing?
It sounds like it would be.
Right. Like, how did he actually get out of bed in the morning? And why do millions of people love reading this if it is so overwhelmingly bleak?
It is easy to view it as purely pessimistic, but that actually misses the core philosophy operating underneath the verse.
Okay, what's underneath it?
Alongside the disillusionment, Hausman's ultimate message is one of endurance, courage, and acceptance. It's a deeply stoic mindset.
Stoic, okay.
He isn't saying life is short and ends in the grave, so just give up. He is saying life is short, the grave is waiting, and therefore you must face reality with your eyes wide open.
Ah, I see.
There's a real dignity in acknowledging that life is painful and choosing to stand tall and bear it anyway.
The dignity of endurance. I like that.
Yeah.
So he realizes emotional pain is inevitable, but does that make him want to surrender? Actually, no. It triggers this intense, almost frantic obsession with maximizing the physical time he has left.
Yes, very much so.
And there is no better example of this collision between youthful arrogance and harsh reality than his famous 1896 poem, When I Was 1 in 20.
Ooh, this poem. It captures the transition from innocence to experience brilliance.
It really does.
Let's look at the actual text of it. It is a very tight two-stanza poem. In the first stanza, we have a 21-year-old speaker who hears a wise man offer a very specific piece of advice.
Right, let me read it. The wise man says, give crowns and pounds and guineas, but not your heart away. Give pearls away and rubies, but keep your fancy free.
Notice the financial language there. He is listing different types of currency. Crowns, pounds, guineas, and then precious gems, pearls, and rubies. He is telling the 21-year-old, give away your material wealth. Give away absolutely everything of physical value, but do not give away your heart.
Keep your fancy free.
Yes. Do not commit yourself emotionally.
And what does our extremely confident 21-year-old say to this profound lived wisdom?
He completely dismisses it.
Completely. He literally says, but I was 1 in 20. No use to talk to me.
It is the impenetrable overconfidence of youth.
Oh, man, yeah.
The speaker cannot even fathom that someone older might possess knowledge that applies to his unique special situation.
Right. And then we move to stanza 2, and the wise man continues his warning.
He does. He explains that giving away the heart is never done in vain, meaning there is always a heavy, unavoidable consequence to it.
Yeah, the wise man says the heart is paid with sighs of plenty and sold for endless rue.
Endless rue, meaning deep, enduring regret.
Rue is such a great word.
It is. Love is framed as a transaction where you inevitably pay a painful tax.
And here comes the punchline of the poem.
The best part.
The final lines shift the timeline forward. The speaker says, "And I am 22, and oh, 'tis true, 'tis true."
He is now 22.
A single year has passed. Just 12 months.
But he has crossed the threshold.
Right. He has experienced his first real heartbreak, and he is forced to look back at the wise man and admit he was right all along.
The primary theme is glaringly clear here.
Mm-hmm.
It's the steep price of experience.
Yeah.
The poem functions as a classic initiation into experience, which is a literary framework where intellectual advice is shown to be fundamentally useless until it becomes lived bodily reality.
It is so universally relatable to you, me, everyone. You can try to impart intellectual knowledge to someone younger, but they can only truly acquire it through the physical and emotional trauma of the sighs and the endless rue.
They have to feel it.
They really do. It makes me think of trying to warn someone about downloading a massive new software update on their phone.
Oh, that's a good comparison.
Right. Like at 21, they blindly click agree to terms because they just want the shiny new interface.
Yeah.
And you try to tell them, wait, this is going to drain your battery. It will track your location. It will change your entire operating system. Don't do it. And they ignore you.
Of course they do.
Then they turn 22. Their phone dies by noon every day. They can't uninstall the update. And they just have to sit there looking at the screen saying, oh, 'tis true, 'tis true.
That is painfully accurate.
You cannot just tell someone a lesson. They have to live the inconvenience.
That is a great way to frame it. The wise man tried to give him a theoretical warning about the software update, but the speaker had to watch his battery drain to zero to actually understand it.
Exactly. I mean, yes, that's right.
The intellectual advice just bounced right off his youthful armor.
So if when I was 1 in 20 is about the harsh emotional attacks of growing up, his other famous poem from that same collection shifts the focus.
It does.
We move from the emotional pain of time passing to the strict mathematical biology of our limited lifespan.
Yes. Loveliest of Trees. The Cherry Now is arguably one of the most beautiful meditations on mortality in the English language.
Let's read the first stanza to get the imagery in our heads.
Go for it.
Loveliest of trees, the cherry now is hung with bloom along the bough and stands about the woodland ride wearing white for Eastertide.
Housman paints a very vibrant, specific picture here.
Yeah, you can really see it.
It is spring. A cherry tree is in full blossom along a woodland ride, which is just a path cut through the woods for horseback riding.
The technical mechanics of this poem are fascinating too.
Oh, absolutely.
The meter has 4 beats to every line. It is written in iambic tetrameter. Loveliest of trees, the cherry now. It gives the poem a very steady marching rhythm.
March, yeah.
It doesn't float, it walks, it ticks, and he personifies the cherry tree, describing it as wearing white for Eastertide, almost like a person dressing up for a Sunday service or some sort of resurrection celebration.
Right, there's that religious undertone.
But then in the second stanza, this beautiful springtime stroll takes a sudden, highly mathematical turn.
It really shifts gears. The speaker pauses to do the math of his own life. He reveals he is 20 years old. He says, "Now of my 80 years and 10, 20 will not come again."
80 years and 10.
Right. He is calculating his life expectancy based on the biblical lifespan mentioned in the book of Psalms, which is 70 years.
A score being 20, so 3 times 20 is 60 plus 10 is 70.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a very standard cultural benchmark for a full life at the time.
And he literally does the subtraction right there in the poem. He says, and take from 70 springs a score, it only leaves me 50 more.
70 minus 20 leaves 50.
He realizes that if he lives an entirely average lifespan, he only has 50 springs left to witness this cherry tree blooming.
And this is where the poem gets really profound.
Well, this is where I actually find some friction, to be honest.
Oh, why is that?
Why is a 20-year-old surrounded by gorgeous white blossoms on a perfect spring day suddenly doing actuarial tables about his own impending death?
That's a fair question.
When I was 20, I thought I was immortal. Most 20-year-olds are not walking through the forest calculating their expiration date.
They aren't, which is precisely why the poem is so arresting. It taps into the ancient tradition of carpe diem, or seize the day, but it frames it through cold mathematics.
Math and poetry, quite the combo.
By forcing the 20-year-old to do the math, Housman breaks the illusion of immortality.
Right.
50 springs sounds like a decent amount of time until you frame it as just 50 isolated moments.
Just 50 times seeing the flowers bloom.
Yes. 50 is a finite, rapidly shrinking number. He refers to it in the next stanza as little room.
And since to look at things in bloom, 50 springs are little room, about the woodlands I will go to see the cherry hung with snow.
The cherry blossom is the perfect symbol for this realization.
How so?
A cherry tree blooms brilliantly white, but it is incredibly fragile. A strong wind or a heavy rain can strip the blossoms in a matter of days.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It represents youthful vitality, but it also represents how incredibly fast that vitality fades.
And notice his reaction to this morbid realization.
Yes.
Confronted by his own mortality, the speaker does not collapse in despair.
No, he doesn't.
He does not turn around and go home to hide under the covers. He experiences an awakening. He actively decides to go further into the woodlands.
Because he knows he only has 50 tickets left for this show.
I love that. 50 tickets.
The act of observing the tree becomes urgent. It is a frantic, passionate call to live vibrantly in the present moment, precisely because that moment is slipping through your fingers.
When we pull back and synthesize the themes of both these poems, a beautiful symmetry emerges that perfectly mirrors Housman's own life.
It really does.
In one poem, a 22-year-old wakes up to the severe pain of emotional investment and heartbreak.
Right.
In the other, a 20-year-old wakes up to the fleeting mathematical reality of his physical existence. Both speakers are realizing the harsh rules of the game they are forced to play.
It makes you stop and think about the sheer biological absurdity of existing at all.
It really does.
If you pause and think about what has to go right on a microscopic physiological level just for you to wake up in the morning.
Oh, it's wild.
Your heart has to keep a rhythm. Your lungs have to draw oxygen. Millions of synapses have to fire in sequence. It is a staggering, fragile miracle.
We take it for granted completely.
We do, until a poet like Housman taps us on the shoulder and says, you know, you only get to do this a certain number of times, right?
It forces a massive shift in perspective.
Yeah.
When you recognize that fragility, those 50 springs are no longer just guaranteed time on a calendar. They become intensely precious resources that you are actively spending.
Yes.
Which brings me right back to Housman's day job as a classical scholar. We talked about how he spent his life staring at copies of ancient, crumbling texts.
Right, the textual criticism.
Think about the psychology of that. If your entire professional life is dedicated to the reality that civilizations fall, emperors die, massive empires turn to dust, and all we leave behind are fragmented pieces of parchment.
You become hyper-aware that everything fades.
You do. No wonder he felt the urgency to step away from his desk and witness the spring. No wonder he wanted to go look at the cherry blossoms.
That is the ultimate paradox of A.E. Housman.
Yeah.
He was a strict, reserved, sometimes ruthless academic who lived in a world of dead languages. Yet he turned around and wrote these deeply emotional, universally accessible verses to remind us of the most fundamental human truths.
It is time to pull our core takeaways together for you. If there is anything to carry forward from the mind of A.E. Housman, it is this. Life is startlingly brief.
It is.
Intellectual advice might sound nice, but lived experience is the only true teacher you will ever have. And most importantly, the stark awareness of our own mortality should not be a source of paralyzing fear, but the very fuel that ignites our passion to engage with the present moment.
I want to leave you with a final lingering thought to ponder as you go about your day.
Okay, let's hear it.
Think back to the wise man in the first poem, the one who tried to warn the arrogant 21-year-old about the painful cost of giving his heart away.
The one who said, keep your fancy free.
Yes, What if that wise man is actually just the much older version of the 20-year-old from the cherry tree poem?
Oh, wow. That is fascinating.
Imagine it. Someone who realized early on that he only had 50 springs left, so he
Mm.
chose to live them fiercely. He loved deeply, he accumulated his endless rue and his heartbreak, and now, as an older man, he's trying to pass on wisdom he knows deep down the younger generation will ignore anyway.
Because they have to learn it for themselves.
Right. So as you go about your week, ask yourself, how are you spending your remaining springs, and whose warnings are you currently ignoring?
Thank you so much for joining us on Stay Lit. Go out and look at the trees, the cherry is hung with snow, and your springs are waiting.